Poetry Flash. Welcome to another event in our Poetry Flash reading series. I'm Joyce Jenkins, Poetry Flash editor and director, coming to you from Poetry Flash in Berkeley, California. Today we are pleased to present a reading from two great new books by Terri Glass and Kathy Evans. This reading is co-sponsored by Moe's Books. See the book link that will be in the chat box that our wonderful tech support, Rosalinda, is going to put in the chat box now for bookshop.org/lists/poetry-flash-readings. And you can get these books there. It will be a very, very good thing. It will help support Moe's Books. Prices are reasonable, the service is good, you will get the book, and it will be a very, very good thing all around. It will help support the series. I urge you to visit poetryflash.org for an homage to Michael McClure, book reviews on Ma Shine Win, Kathy Coleman, Kathleen Winter, and others. Interviews, events, there's lots there and more gets posted every week. To sign up for our event email list, go to poetryflash.org and scroll down to join our mailing list. Here is Richard Silberg, Associate Editor of Poetry Flash, who's going to introduce today's wonderful poets.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Our chat box is full today, not simply with fans of the poets and our Poetry Flash readership, but Al has logged in to hear Terri's beautiful poem about him. Puma is in the chat box. The animals want to hear Terri's beautiful poems about them. This is Terri Glass's, I believe it's your second full-length book of poems, and you've done CDs of a CD with music and poetry, and probably some chapbooks. But this is a beautiful book, Being Animals. I guess you won't be able to see Brother Fox. There he is. There he is, our beautiful red fox. This is a book about the creatures we share the world with, our brother creatures. We often harm and we don't share the world with them. One of the sections, there are 5 sections, each ending with haiku, several haiku. And one of the sections is about the animals we are harming, because obviously this is a world that we are not stewarding very well. Whales, there's a whale ripped up by a ship, beginning that section. There's a beautiful, beautiful poem. There are many beautiful poems, but I'm particularly struck by a poem to an owl in which Terri enters the blackness of the owl's eye. You're probably going to read that, Terri. You will if you want, but I hope you do. There are many beautiful poems, and let's try to make room for our fellow creatures, as Terri will instruct us. Let's give her a warm welcome, Terri Glass.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for introducing the chapters. I was going to do that, but now I don't have to. But anyway, before I was a poet, I was a biologist. So I was always out observing creatures way before I was even writing about them. But now, since I've switched over into the writing realm, I end up writing about them because I'm still totally fascinated by animals. So I'm going to begin with a haiku to invite you in, kind of invoke you into this reading. And this goes, absorb the night air. Come into animal presence. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. This poem, Violet Green Swallows, begins the book, and it's in the section of celebrating. Violet green swallows. Over Mount Burdell, they flit, soar, and dive through a deep blue sky, a glimpse of white belly and dark green back, weaving among buckeye in blossom and old live oak. Skimming the sky, dipping over my head, may they anoint me with levity as I ascend the hill, so my feet endure jutting rocks and sudden dips in the trail. May their spirit fill the troubled world with joy. Visible angels not bound by gravity or darkness, arrows of pure freedom and play, they dart about catching insects, currents of wind, aerial circus acrobats. Nimble, swift, I want that gift to fly among cumulus clouds and the blue, a blue-eyed grass sky. I want everyone to feel, even for a moment, the grace of a violet green swallow. These are two haiku in that section called Celebrating. It emerges, sleek as the waves it rolls with, river otter. A bee drops into a poppy's cup. What a life. Now, these next poems are in the section of longing. One of them takes the persona of the animal. The other one is just longing. And this is Owl. This is the poem Owl that Richard was referring to. And this is for an owl named Hazel, who was on display at the Audubon Center Festival in Portland, Oregon some years back. So she was used for educational purposes. And after I sent this poem to the Audubon Center, she died. So this is for Hazel. The owl's eyes were so perfect, so black, so lustrous, so elliptical, that I wanted to be lost in them forever, to enter into a bird's eye view of the world, to see in the dark, be inside out blackness. The owl's feathers were so gray, so gunmetal gray, so coat of squirrel gray, so blue gray, that I wanted neither day or night, to be in sheer limbo of it all, mute and silent. The owl's head swiveled from left to right like it had no vertebrae, like its head could twist off, like watching a skater whip around in circles that I wanted all my thoughts to dissolve. The owl's modeling was so white, so virginal, like the soft down of a swan, like a lamb lived in its feathers, that I wanted to drift into deep sleep. The spotted owl was so beautiful that I no longer wanted to be human. I wanted to dwell in the wellspring of those eyes, to take flight in the cool night air with fringed wings, to be silent and soft feathered, to fall from a great height at will, sensing the barely visible. This next poem is called River Keeper, and this is dedicated to the beavers of Martinez. I just want to read you a little bit about them. In 2006, the Martinez beavers built a dam 30 feet wide, 6 feet high, and chewed through half the willows and other creekside landscaping the city planted as part of their $9 million flood improvement project. River Keeper. I want to be a beaver, a simple creature with 2 glassy black eyes and a spatula tail with which I whack the ground when I please. I want to nod down some rough bark trees and jam a river, your river. I want to jam your river with logs, limbs, and leaves. I want to waddle and jam and slap and mow. I want to mow down a forest full of willows with my big chunky teeth and let my olive-sized nostrils whiff the aspen breeze. I want to be a beaver, not your beaver, a beaver. With mud and stone in my forepaws and timber beneath my teeth, I want to build a 6-foot-high dam that dazzles muskrats and minks. I want to outflank the Army Corps of Engineers and infiltrate every river, stream, and creek. I want that handsome fur that no, you cannot pet, and live in a den underwater that's not a welcome habitat for any wishful human to probe, poke, or peer. I want to build a bridge between waterways with logs of birch. When I waddle, I want my underbelly to scrape the detritus of earth. I want to string the seasons into some kind of thatch and seal from winter's storm where I languidly rest. I want to be a beaver with a thick fur pelt and a bouquet of stiff whiskers. I want to go my beaver ways and not be bothered by fishing line or tack. I want to gnaw, whittle, and whack and build up that pile of sticks to block out your scent, you musky human with your lures and animal traps. That's my defiant beaver. Okay, the next section is animals in a human world. And this one, Richard mentioned, this one's called Blue Whale at Bellinas. And I actually didn't physically see this whale, but I saw a photograph of the whale and it struck me so much I had to write this poem. She lay there like a behemoth tube sock, the surf rising down, then crashing down on her body, no longer belonging to sea, but to sand in the hands of the biologists who will carve into her flesh for a full necropsy. Broken ribs, blunt force trauma to her head. Struck by a ship, wham, wrong place, wrong time. The gentlest of beasts and eater of krill became roadkill by the busyness of ships bringing in cargo from Japan. Imagine the weight of a ship barreling into a 70-foot whale, and here on Agate Beach, tiny stick figures called humans scatter around her. The waves roll in, rinsing her great blue body with sea foam, singing her spirit back to sea. The next poem is called Sea Stars. And at the Watershed Festival, the poet Ellery Akers mentioned that the sea star population is now returning, which I was happy to hear, but there's still a lot of places where they are still vanishing, as my poem explains. Sea stars, as if fallen from the sky, their 5 points illuminate the bottom of the sea. They have lived for centuries, blood orange, deep purple, with perfectly symmetrical arms now tearing off and crawling away from their bodies. Sea star wasting syndrome. Can you imagine what that feels like? Maybe the bombing victims of the Boston Marathon know when that blast left so many with shattered limbs. Our nation severed in so many directions. The ocean, now acid. I look at my body still intact. I love my arms when they swoosh the summer air as I hike up Mount Burdell, the balances they create, the multitude of purposes they serve. Whole populations of sea stars along the Pacific coast vanishing like cities at night, lights going out one by one, as their arms rip away, leaving their bodies in a limp mass. I do my morning yoga. Triangle pose, my body 5-pointed, my left arm vertical toward the sky from where stars fall. This one is called Wind Turbines at Ultimate Pass. I'm sure most of you have experienced that if you're driving eastward towards Sacramento. Wind turbines at Ultimate Pass, standing upright on barren hills, facing both sides of the freeway, catching the smog spewing from automobiles, catching the wind in wild blades of steel, killing kestrels and red-tailed hawks, generating energy for power grids, lighting the streetlights of grimy alleyways, lighting the traffic light that turns red. You stop breathless at these colossi, the loneliness of gray metal against blue sky, and ask, what part of you feels like this? What part of your loneliness turns thoughts inside your head, kills the flight of your imagination, but lights the dark alleyways of doubt? What part of you has hardened to your own spirit, longing to find the nearby delta where egrets wade and rivers converge? What part of you stands on barren hills, thrashing your arms toward the universe, hoping all this thrashing does some good in the world? This one is called The Bear That Reversed the Tale of Goldilocks. Driving along El Dorado Highway from the eastern Sierras, I stop at a country store that replenishes hikers. At the entrance stands a wood carving of a 10-foot bear. The shop owner in yellow t-shirt and shorts waits on me as I buy snacks, expounds a tale of when a black bear rambled right through the front door and chose a box of Lindor chocolates to eat. What good taste, I thought of the bear. The next story, the same bear walks into the owner's house behind the shop and gobbles down a large Tupperware container of potato salad without puncturing the plastic. How courteous, I thought of the bear. Final story, the bear meanders into the owner's bedroom and leaves a huge dump on the carpet next to the bed, almost the size of elephant dung. What a magnanimous conclusion, I thought of the bear. Okay, the next section is called Shifting, as in shape shifting. And this first poem came to me in kind of a dreamlike state. It was kind of an unusual poem called First Feathers. There is an ache in my bones as old as the Cretaceous. I am part dinosaur, winged and reptilian, crushed, fossilized in the strata of earth. My vertebrae lodged in limestone, my tail an imprint of first feathers. A desire to fly over seas of writhing creatures that rise and snap with great jaws and leap and lift off by a wingspan of invention. I am part bird trapped in stone, asleep millions of years. This bird bears weight in my bones. She is my phylogeny, my alphabet of history, the edge of evolution. As she rises to the surface, her wings thrum in my dreams. Okay, this one's called Puma. And there's a place in Novato called Rush Creek I used to walk around. And I always imagined that there was a mountain lion in the hills watching me, although I never did see her. Puma. Moondrop eyes, paws of steel, you who roam the hills near home. Silent, stealthy, invisible to prey until you pounce. Runner of wind, of time, you traverse miles like liquid amber, flashing through autumn grass, paw prints disappearing in dust, your breath of flame, your heartbeat a compass mapping your terrain. Closest ancestor to my wildness, you prowl inside my soul, forcing me alert and to hunt any small rustle or scent that leads me toward that edge of aliveness. A haiku. Lightning quick fox, I follow until I wear a plush coat of rust. Okay, these next few poems are from the last chapter, Animals as Metaphor, and this one's called So Many the Numbers. I will never forget that late fall day we drove up to the Nooksack River, full of spawning salmon, surprised to catch a few eagles feasting on the ground, then our eyes lifted to the tall firs where over 100 perched, heads white as ghosts, beaks fierce as thighs, all feathers and talons, wingspan and visual acuity. Never had I seen so many bald eagles in one place, and the vast number of salmon zeroing upstream. This is what the earth looked like 40 years ago, before cell phones, the internet, 7 billion people, the melting ice caps. This was my panorama when my future was fresh and the world was full of promise. Silvery salmon, wild rivers, our national emblem visible to the eye, the great shriek to freedom. Now my panorama is a large screen TV blaring thousands of immigrants fleeing Honduras, overheated, underfed, marching toward a militia-lined border in America. The eagle, only a memory overhead. Freedom, a phantom cry. This poem is called Road Trip. Driving down 101 near Laytonville, I see the most ridiculous thing in the opposite lane. A llama trotting with a string of cars behind it, head held high like a camel leading a caravan through a desert. Dear llama, who do you belong to? Although I don't blame any animal that wants to take off on its own road trip. My boyfriend and I did when we abruptly left college mid-quarter, piled into a red VW Bug and headed for the Southwest, hoping to join a commune somewhere. Midway to Arizona, we stopped in Reno and got married in an Elvis chapel to the horror of our parents and continued on till we reached the Painted Desert. We were in awe of the geology, buttes, alluvial fans, petrified rock. Statues of Saguaro cactus welcomed us like sanctioned priests, and the blue of the southwest sky ripped open the top of our heads. We were rambling escapees from academia, loving our freedom like the llama, which is not ridiculous after all, just a bit startling, like our own wild impulses leading us down an unknown highway. This poem is called Wapiti. This is a Native American name for a particular animal that it will be revealed as the poem is read. Wapiti. Laden with the antler of 8 tines, burly chest with shaggy mane, legs that outrun coyote, the bull elk strides across the hills, the grand sentinel protecting a harem of cows and young grazing on native grasses. I call out their real name, Wapiti, meaning white rump. They number 500 now on Point Reyes Peninsula, nearly extinct from overhunting for hide and tallow. The one last herd was brought back by a southern rancher and the Tule elk multiplied. Each winter, males shed their antlers, giving backbone to the earth. Each spring, the cows give birth. Each autumn, the bull bugles, the call, high-pitched ascending, the human version of Branda screaming, Stella! Animal of declaration, ornamentation, strength. Wapiti, 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 may your real name echo through these hills. May your bugle awaken us to follow our own heart's desire. May we carve out that path just as your hooves wear a trail over this rocky peninsula. Okay, this poem is called Morning with Charlie. Charlie is my dog that I'm absolutely in love with. But this is the routine that happens every morning with her. Morning with Charlie. She gallops down the hallway, a sock in her mouth. Clop, pitter, clop. Enters my bedroom, steps on my head to wake me up. 5 a.m. 5 a.m. is sleeping in for me. I wander into the kitchen, hand her a chicken stick she devours in 5 minutes. Ready to play, she bumps the back of my knee with her ball. I try to pour water into the coffee maker, but she keeps hitting my knee until I throw it down the hallway. Clop, pitter, clop, leaps on my bed like a circus dog waiting for me to chase after her, to take the ball from her mouth. She continues this game until one of us peters out, usually me. I need to drink my coffee, listen to the news to discover which hurricane, firestorm, or violent protest is wreaking havoc today. Charlie plops on the floor, the epitome of innocence. She looks like a giant sausage. Her coat is so black it's blue, more beautiful than obsidian. I don't know what she sees through her small amber eyes, but she tips her head when I talk to her. trying hard to understand my syntax. Charlie, so many are gasping for air in overcrowded hospitals, under a policeman's knee, in smoke so thick it's choking California. She picks up her ball, then rope toy, drops it for a sock that I've just taken off. Come get it, she says with her wagging body, then hightails it down the hall. I think I'll read a couple more poems and two more haiku. This one's called Amid All This Light. These last few poems are not in the book, but they fall in the same category of animal. Our only hope is phosphorescence as night descends over the ocean. Plankton glow like little lanterns strung over a patio. They blink off and on, a wavelength of forgiveness. I long to drift on the sea with pulsating stars above, bioluminescence below, and be cream filling amid all this light. The ocean, a high vibration, phytoplankton, lanternfish, comb jelly, giant inky squid, each form radiating infinite genius. I want the world to phosphorus, bubble up with light amid the ravaging of nations, the unrest of a pandemic, the injustice of politics. Can we learn from these creatures, or do we drown in the depths of separateness? Can we rise to the surface and hold fast, emitting our own little beam of light? This poem is called The Renewal. This takes place in a refuge up in southwestern Washington, near where I grew up, and I wrote it right after the new year. The Renewal. Mounds of white cover the green, an entire field flooded with snow geese. Behind them, something larger, gray sandhill cranes bent over to feed. Just north, thousands of tundra swans wintering at Richfield Refuge. So exhilarating, like watching the great wildebeest migration on the Serengeti. Renewal for the new year, and water everywhere, filling the fields, overflowing the creeks, opposite the parched summer when uncontrollable wildfires raged. Just wait a few months and things change. The loss of the Sumatran rhino, the Chinese paddlefish, the death of a great writer at Christmas, a new US president. While all these avian creatures fill the sky with honks, cries, and whooshes, the air electric with sight and sound, as I watch the world change, some things still thrive. And I'm alive after 6 decades, so grateful I came to the field that magically turned white with the salvation of snow geese. Okay, two last haiku. Wood duck floats downstream. As I lay in the hammock, I drift with the clouds. Heaven on earth, being me, being animal. Thank you.
Thank you, Terri. I just am barely restraining myself from beating my chest like the
Oh.
silverback gorilla I have always dreamed of being. Matter of fact, I'm beating my chest. There we go. Thank you. Okay,
Oh,
all right.
good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Joyce, for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
Great problem. Great pleasure. Okay, our second reader is Kathy Evans. And let me begin by congratulating her, because this book, she's published 3 chapbooks, but this is her first full-length book of poems, and that's a wonderful creative birth for a poet. And she tells us in one of these poems that she's in her early 70s. So how wonderful, and let's wish that this is not your last. It's a beautiful book. There are 4 sections, each begin with with a found poem, the first of which is the title of the book, Trespassers Welcome, which is found on a fence post. So let's all trespass here and feel welcome to this book. Uh, this is a beautifully imaginative book. There is uh, an art of free form poem in which the poem, I mean, there's much to that art, but a key to it is the ending. To find the ending that clicks the poem off and leaves its imaginative structure in motion in your mind. And these poems do that. There are many, many different kinds of poems in this book. Uh, some of them mix fantasy with reality. Some of them use the voices of students because Kathy has been a teacher, as I believe you have too, Terri. I know you both have. And the students' voices beautifully create their own realities in these poems. There's elegy to a mom. Uh, I'm trying to, there's so many different kinds of poems, and the imagination, the leaps of these poems, as you will hear, really take us into flight. So let's give her a flutter of jazz hands and welcome Kathy Evans.
Thank you. Did you say flutter of jazz? That itself is a poem right there, a little flutter of jazz. I want to thank really Poetry Flash that has kept us steady for many, many years in the Bay Area, and for Joyce and Richard, who have been dedicated to this craft. And I just value them and all their hard work, and that Poetry Flash is still going strong even in this strange time. And hopefully we're ending this strange time, opening up a little more. And I've been writing poetry since I was 15. I had an amazing sophomore, when I was a sophomore, I had a teacher by the name of J.N. Washburn. He was eccentric and odd, and he used to say, "Give me my Hamlet and I need no lunch." And I was so naive at that time, I thought he was saying omelet. So it took me a while to catch up with J.N. Washburn. But I love poetry, I love words, I love all the different kinds of writers that go in so many different directions, and including Terri, who I've known for a long, long time. And we started out in a gardening company together and used to trade stories back and forth. She is a foxy lady. No wonder she has a book called Being Animal. She is a fox, even though she identifies with many different creatures. So thank you. I will begin with a book that just came out actually called Fog and Light. And I plug it because it's got, I'll see if I can hold it up here. It has poets from San Francisco and obscure poets about obscure places in San Francisco and odd little corners of bookstores and hills that people used to roller skate down. And it's a wonderful book, Fog and Light. I have 2 poems in it, so I'll start with those. I mean, poems can be joyful, they can be mournful, and I think the 2 that were selected for this book, one is joyful and one is mournful. Ballet practice, rain in San Francisco, coming down in buckets, and I mean buckets. My car is inching toward an intersection on Franklin, idling toward fate. It's a slow prowl to the stoplight. I've been at this same stoplight, it seems, for 1,000 years. But Mozart is on the radio, and people outside are pushing black umbrellas toward the sky, while across the street in a glass building, the bodies of dancers fly through the air like finches and leaves. I love ballet too. And my friend takes me to the ballet, Jackie Cutler. So this was for her. The more mournful poem is this one. Questions for Michael after the fact. Did you wear boots? Anything in your pockets? What was the last thing you held that was delicate? Which tattoo identified you? How long were you in the water? How long had it been since you spoke with her? Had you held anything delicate that day? Did you take BART, then walk? Did you pretend you were a tourist? What was the last piece of fruit that you bit into? Did you remember shelling peas on her back patio? Do you remember building your sister a fence? Was it a Wednesday? Was it too bright? What did you say to anyone before you left that day? Did you think you could fly? And why just past the midspan? What was your last thought? Did your body float all the way to Angel Island? Was it a Wednesday? Was it too bright? So that was for my nephew, Michael. And those two poems are featured in the Poets of San Francisco. So Richard, thank you for saying all those wonderful things about the book and reading it. You always read with such depth and interest and take pride in other people's poems. So I appreciate that about you. And I remember when you used to introduce all the poets at Cody's, and you always had many things to say that were enlightening. So this is the book, Trespassers Welcome. And I did find that that phrase on a post posted on a fence up in Point Reyes. And I thought, wow, what if everybody felt that way? Come, welcome, trespassers welcome. And that was the impetus for writing the poem. I think I'll start with a poem that's in the book because it was mentioned that I teach. I've been teaching creative writing, poetry, essays for a long, long time. And I have such honor and respect for children and the way their minds work. They are extraordinary, and we learn from them, even in the odd things they say. They just say funny things sometimes. And just as an example, my niece she was here a while ago, but she wanted to go buy shampoo for her parents' anniversary. And I said, shampoo. And then I realized she was really talking about champagne. But I said, we'll buy both. We'll buy champagne and shampoo. So this is a poem that is called What the First Graders Said. They were telling me their dreams, sitting at their desks as if in translation. The words began to fill the room. We could hear the other children just beyond the wall out on the playground, their muffled squeals, their kickball sounds, the rolling carts. But then the words began to appear on the walls, and I began writing them down. Coyote, skull shadow, closet door shut. One child said he had a dream that the numbers were too high. It was a math dream. And another young boy said when he had a seizure in the hospital, he felt like he was falling into a lake of needles. The girl with the braids at the back said her father, she dreamed, was filling a canyon with liquid cement. What's her name? Dottie spoke up. I feel like in my dream, I'm trapped in a small box, but I grow younger. Then the child from Iraq, I think his name was Sebri, said that in real life, before he was born, his father was shot 6 times and lived. And now I dream my dad picks me up in his arms but he is a skeleton, and then I turn into a skeleton too. I feel at this point, as the teacher looks at me, that it is my responsibility to take us in another direction. I remember a dream I had once, I say, under a very pretty tree. A big rescue dog picks me up with his mouth and his slobbery jowls, and he carries me into a magnificent meadow. There, I say, there. So that's a little bit about teaching. And maybe I'll read a poem. We've put out, I am a poet in resident at Bellinas Children's Hospital. And so I work with children who have cancer and other kinds of, all kinds of different ailments and circumstances. It's been probably the high point of my life working with these children because they're so resilient and they actually have a lot to say when they're between those worlds. And this is kind of a funny one. I'll hold up this picture. This is a dragon, if you can see it. And this is one of the poems that the children wrote. It was a group poem called Dragons. I think they have higher intelligence than humans. If you steal from them, you're never seen again. Are baby dragons good when they are born? I think the mom dragons teach the baby dragons how to be bad. Dragons can make the moon red by burning it with fire. If dragons were in a zoo, they would burn down the cage. I put a dragon on a gold treasure box once, and it flew away. When the dragons were outside, they left their bones. I have found toad eggs. You can sell dragon wings for a lot of money. Their jaws are strong, stronger than a 600-pound Chinese otter. So you can see why I delight in teaching the children. This one is for my daughter. And when it was Mother's Day, she would always bring me irises on Mother's Day or in the spring. And I would put them out on the deck and loved these irises. Now she's a mother herself and she's way too busy and I should bring her irises. But this is a note written on a napkin for Allie. Every year the irises appear with green straight elegance and dark assertive tips. Even when the fog settles, I love how overnight a single bud will open to what light there is. How, with some reluctance, it's drawn to its edges, the way you are drawn, the way all desire declares itself. So thank you, Allie, for the irises. This is for my son, Jake, who he had brain cancer. And that's why I ended up, I think, teaching in the hospital was because he inspired me. And Jake is a quiet son. So this is called Quiet. So quiet, the prayer is quiet. Quiet enough for hair to grow. The voice of ice, the tea bag. So quiet, music notes rest at their rest stops. Quiet enough for tumors to stop growing. As quiet as snow falling into snow. As quiet as the inside of your hat. Thank you, Jake. And because Terri was so closely aligned with the natural world and has all these things to tell us about animals, the one night that I remembered was in Death Valley. Where is that poem? I thought I grabbed the right one. Just a second, let me grab it. Oh, now I knocked over a shelf. Can you believe that? This is a poem written in Death Valley. And it's the closest I think I've ever felt to the awe of everything. And I'll follow it up with a poem on a similar theme. A few thoughts. The grace to be nowhere, to be literally in time rather than on time. Just out there away from the clutter for a while, to unclutter the mind for a while, to find a place in all that space for uninterrupted thought and unintentional prayer, to be free from lists, just this one, rock wall, mudstone, sky, alluvial fan, ghost flower, apricot mallow, eroded badlands, mesquite. And at night to be that close to stars again, to feel summoned, to sleep and place the body on the ground like a compass needle. We place our hands and feet in the eye holes of rock and we climb. Everything large and small seems to be watching. And let me see, I have, let's see, I'll read this one too. With respect for our biology, our anatomy, for everything. Oh, I should put on my glasses for this. I'm in the page now. My grown daughter, when agreeing with someone in conversation, will often end with totally. Now, I think such confirmation should be saved for more cosmic events, say a lunar cycle, where certain species have been known to synchronize their breeding. Or a total solar eclipse, where spiders like disgruntled campers break down their webs, and hippos in Zimbabwe leave their rivers, owl monkeys stop foraging, a lunar eclipse when mass spawning in a coral reef happens all at once. 10,000 eggs released in the dark, totally. Now, my granddaughter, on the other hand, can put puzzles together totally fast, complex puzzles. Mind you, she is 4. The other night, she put the entire United States of America back together again. I mean, somebody has to. I reminded her, Kansas is missing, but I'm going to change that to Florida. Florida is missing. She said, well, just look under the rug. Her brother totally almost destroyed, her baby brother almost destroyed the room next to us. He is a Tyrannosaurus Rex of the living room, and we love him. We love him totally. Meanwhile, on this street, finally, in a quiet corner of the living room, I am in awe of the human brain and how, like a train, it can switch tracks in the layered terminal. Part of the train on one track, part of it on another, all those containers and compartments, all lined up, and even one with a sleeping berth. Imagine a sleeping berth for us. I am totally in awe of squid ink and how orchids can differentiate to become themselves, and woodpeckers, what are they up to? Pink flamingos, how and why they stand on one leg, tucking their crooked necks and streamlined heads under one soft, beautiful pink wing. When I think of our lives orbiting out there in space like raw data, pineapples growing out of the ground like small huts, a snake slipping its skin, a blue agave, meteors, eczema, toes, wings, cocoons, our biological impulses, and our political undoings, I am astonished, totally. So there you go. I am astonished, as we all are, have those moments when we think, geez, we're so little. You know, we're just these beings with all these other beings. I remember looking at a cow once and thinking, it has 4 stomachs and I have 1. I mean, there's the difference right there. Let me see, what else should I read? The kiss. I mean, that's better than a kiss. The kiss. The kiss wants us on both sides of it, like an equation. It has said so. And we want the kiss. to bind us, to fasten us, to keep us steadfast. We want that kiss to lie between us and make its way out of its bed into ours each night, to wake up to its mouth as well as our own and each other's. We are its cave. The kiss sleeps in there sometimes, and we are its water surrounding this island, this kiss, this island, this kiss. We are the body of water around it. The kiss is molecular. We are its particles, the place that pulls between us its own weight and mass. The kiss is neurotic transaction, a low-key metrical pattern that gives structure and form. It is also medicinal, centrifugal, and wet. I watch its smallest movements, almost a pulse, pushing out against the breast of a finch. Our breath pushes out this way. The kiss has come on wings and bird's feet. The throat knows the kiss, the intricate ear asks for it, receives it. The tongue and the mouth belong to the kiss. They are its messengers. We know the kiss will find us when we are lost to each other and bring us back to our bodies with pragmatic rapture. We will return from the kiss lighter. The kiss will then rest between us like a small sun sliding into the great continental divide. The kiss. You know, I think you'd call that poem a mixed metaphor, but there are many wonderful metaphors for a kiss. What other kinds of poems do you want to hear? I have many. Let's see. I'll do one for Juvenile Hall, or maybe I haven't read this one. It's a little dated now, but it's The Paint Dream. And I guess it's my Trump poem. I was trying not to be too cruel. The Paint Dream. Last night I dreamed Trump came on to me. I mean, me too. Of all women, I'm 72. I was painting walls in the White House, all speckled in my dream, in my paint clothes, and he was in a tux, wearing his red Make America Great hat again, which he offered me. No, I said, I like my paint overalls and my paint hat. I told him emphatically. The walls were just a ghastly green, a sludgy swamp green with little gold flecks. Nothing was getting covered up completely with my roller because the walls were all embossed from the Jackie Kennedy redo days, and nobody had a clue. The white was showing through. I remembered Mrs. White did it in the dining hall with the revolver. Trump, with his puff hair, kept at it. He was like a bouncer. I was looking for a way out, maybe through the servants' entry, if there was just some way to get to the rose garden. I went through a door, and there I was in the press room with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, her hair darker and stringier than I had remembered, and she looked Amish. She was choked up, genuinely so this time, because a little boy, representing Time magazine for kids, was asking her questions about the NRA and why doesn't President Trump, and because she has a child too, she almost started to cry in that room of the disingenuous. I had a few questions for her, but Stormy Daniels was in the room and, I didn't think I had a chance, which is, I thought, I'm in hell, which I think I was. Trump came in and stood behind me. Maybe he thought I was Russian. That was it. So I jabbed him with my paint roller, ruining his tux. I just needed an exit through the right door. No, not the right door and not the left door, just the door. We all do. I jabbed him once again and said, go away, shoo fly, don't bother me. Mrs. White did it in the library with the gun. Then the Secret Service grabbed me, dragged me through a tunnel. This needs a little paint too, I said. Take your hands off me. I'm just a common citizen. Get back in there now, I yelled, and make America safe again. And they released me, and that was that. I crossed the border.
Yay.
About Trump. Oh, wait, I see Tom. I see Tom here. Oh, I hope you're feeling better, Tom. And what time is it? I think I might have to, I think I have time for a couple more. And let me see.
Damn it.
I'll do this one.
Kathy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Read the poem about stickers.
Stickers?
Yes,
The Optimus stickers.
yes.
Oh, well, I'll have to find it. Let me see. I wasn't planning on it. It's a longer one. Oh, okay. Here it is. I've got it. I hope I'm not being too nervous. I am nervous. This is Optimus stickers. And they were these stickers I saw on a concrete wall down in the Fillmore area. And sometimes I tell the children, if you can't think of anything to write about, just write about today and what is happening right now. Just start there. So I followed my own devices and and devices. Optimus stickers. Today, I can't decide, should I buy a new witch hat or a silver necklace with a teardrop? I find these things in the little shop of hope inside Zion's hospital. So I choose both. I lost my phone somewhere after the CT scan. Now I'm just testing my own personal data system myself while offering prayers to whatever. The homeless outside Mount Zion are sitting on concrete piles and gathering together their own pillowed piles, squeezed and bound with bright bungee cords. I feed the meter, buy, rent, borrow. The day has began, and men in coveralls are ascending the scaffolding onto the glass. I think they look like working class angels in hard hats. It's already tomorrow in Melbourne, Australia, and Rick, the parking lot attendant, tells me he knows everything about the Rolling Stones and that they're so old now, they're called the Rolling Bones. And I like that. And then he hands me a ripped off CD of Neil Young singing Mother Earth, which he informs me was written for Neil Young's mother. And flowers grow on the walls and jackhammers are tearing up the streets and Optimus stickers are painted on the storefront in English and Chinese. And I can't decide, should I quit the amoxicillin because it gives me hives and my lips double in size, or should I just let myself bloat with the prednisone like a Goodyear blimp and go up, up, up like a spirit in the sky with Norman Greenbaum, who hit it big in '69. I'm just saying, Norman Greenbaum, a hippie dude, just saying. Or into time with the Chambers Brothers. Instead, I decide to go for Jewish soup on 24th and Shotwell to Wise & Sons, where they have homemade matzo balls, world famous babka, and hetchy water. Don't you just love the word delicatessen? Here where the sign reads sumptuous dark coffee and eat something, you look skinny. Plus the big red one over the door. In America, you can eat challah every day. Of course, unless you're homeless or live in Charlottesville. Remember Charlottesville? You should remember Charlottesville because the country is getting cut up into big slabs of pie. Inside by the cooler, there are two Chinese men in ball caps, tourists in white golf shirts, a Hispanic gal with a Brooklyn accent, and a soup line spooling out the door. Crazy Love is playing on the overhead. I spy my granddaughter outside in the crosswalk in one of those nursery school centipedes. Children in little lime green t-shirts holding onto a rope, crossing the intersection with their teacher. I spot her legs in the rosebud tights. It's Nana, I yell from the doorway. It's Nana. All the children turn and wave, thinking I am their Nana too. That's what I'm talking about. It's just a short distance from the little shop of hope to the delicatessen. Thank you. I think that's it. Maybe one last poem for Terri. And it's a haiku, Terri. Am I that spider in the bright web of day, maybe, maybe not. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate your friendship and your attention.